Hey guys, my name is Kevin, a physiotherapist based in Sydney, dealing with a lot of runners.
Hey, I'm Sota. I'm an ultramarathoner, but I like racing 5K, 10Ks, half and full as well. And I'm a physiotherapy student, and I'm an expert in running shoes.
Today we're going to talk about how to manage common running injuries around a shoe rotation.
And we'll talk a little bit about carbon plated shoes as well, and some myths around it.
Sweet, let's do it.
Let's do it.
First thing, Sota, is carbon plated shoes are the hype right now. Everyone wants carbon plated shoes to run fast, but I'm getting a lot of newer runners, say within the first year of their running journey, a lot of them are just buying carbon plated shoes and getting injuries. What's your take on carbon plated shoes for these newer runners?
In the past, I used to say, like carbon plated shoes, it's rigid, it doesn't flex, it's gonna work your knees and hips a bit more. And to an extent, I still believe in that, but I've also found as I got more experience working at the running shoe store that not everything makes sense. And the reason why is because there's more to it than just the shoe, right?
Yeah.
Because your strength level in different parts of your leg, that can come into play, your running form, there's so many factors, which is why I think this whole topic is really interesting. And yeah, obviously when we talk about plantar fasciitis, patellofemoral knee pain, and Achilles tendinopathy, they're different parts of the leg as well.
Correct.
And I think everyone responds to shoes differently, even though our logic tells us that obviously if we're not flexing at the MTP joint, metatarsophalangeal joint, then we shift the load up to the upper joints, like the ankle, the knee and the hip, obviously. So yeah, there's no right or wrong answer, I would say, but in general, yes, I think it's more common to see upper leg injuries with carbon plated shoes, I would say.
Yeah. So in essence, you're saying that it does not matter of your training history, age, as long as you have appropriate strength to tolerate your training volume, your intensity, all that contributes, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of the band-aid thing that we talk about in terms of whether you want to address the issue or the cause of the issue, you know what I mean? So yes, running shoes are one part, but also if you do the strength to be able to handle the shift and load, then you probably don't need to worry about it. And also the main thing I like to talk about in terms of running shoes is too much of any shoe is not good. So it's not like carbon plated shoes are bad for you. It's more like wearing one shoe all the time is not good. But obviously there's a lot of hype around carbon plated shoes, so a lot of people tend to wear carbon plated shoes a lot, and that's where the issue comes from. But if we wear too much of any other boring shoe as well, that's the same amount of risk, I would say. Because the main thing you want to do is even out the load, shift the load, and just wear different types of shoes. So rotating the shoes will be more important than focusing on what exact shoe to wear.
Because I've got a few clients who literally just have all carbon plated shoes, and that's all they wear for the long runs, the tempo runs, the speed runs, and they just have different types of brands of carbon plated shoes. Well, what would you recommend to be in that rotation then?
Yeah, so I talked about this in a few videos of mine, but the three factors that I look at the most in terms of running shoes, in terms of characteristics, is flexibility, how flexible or stiff it is, or rigid is what we say, how soft or firm, high drop or low drop. And you want to play around with all of that. So the main thing that the carbon plate does is, because it doesn't flex, it makes it quite rigid, and that's the main thing that seems to shift the load up a little bit in general. But again, doesn't apply to everyone, but for a lot of people it does. So the main thing is just rotating, and the carbon plated shoes are really expensive, right? So it's kind of nice to be able to rotate it with a less expensive shoe. So there's no reason not to do that, I guess. And the final thing I want to say is, with my own training as well, I used to never use carbon plated shoes for training because I was always excited to use it for races. Because I don't wear it that frequently. So saving that excitement is also quite important, I would say. And you also feel the benefits of the carbon plated shoe when you use it on race day. One final misconception is that everyone thinks that the carbon plate is what gives you the performance, but a lot of the time it's the carbon plate on top of the foam that they use with it. So the foam works together with the carbon plate to give you the performance. It's not if you put a carbon plate in a really terrible foam, it's going to do nothing.
So what do you mean by the combination of the foam? Is it like a EVA type of foam that just allows that plush sink into the carbon plate?
I think it's the PIBA foam, that they use in all the carbon plated racing shoes. So they're really light and responsive and bouncy and all that. The only downside of that is the durability factor. But when you're talking about performance, PIBA or PBAX, I forgot what the actual thing is. One of them is the company name, the other one's the actual chemical name or whatever. But that's the most energy return foam. So having that alongside the carbon plate that makes it a little bit more rigid, that seems to be what helps out the most. Yeah.
Is there a difference then talking about the price point with a carbon plated shoe and a nylon plated shoe?
Yeah, there's less and less nylon plated shoes nowadays. I feel
Yeah.
like everything's starting to become more carbon plate. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the nylon plate because you still get that little bit of flexibility compared to a
Yeah.
carbon plate. I feel like it serves as that in between to give you that little bit of extra diversity in terms of shoe rotation.
Yeah.
So that you're not just wearing extremely stiff shoes that don't flex.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
one thing you see in common with all the carbon plated shoes is, again, there's no flexibility at all. Yeah.
In a carbon plated shoe, is there a difference in profiles between different models and brands in regards to stack height, heel drop?
Not really. And the
Okay.
reason for that is because they want to have as much foam as possible, but be within the legal guidelines of stack height. So in general, more foam means more bounciness and whatever.
Yep.
So all the brands are trying to hit like 39 millimeters of stack height
Yep.
in the heel because that's the maximum amount that you're allowed. You can't go 40 or above, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, every brand seems to be doing 39 millimeters for their competitive racing shoe, so that it's legal,
Yep.
especially for the pros. Yeah, because of that, you don't really see much diversity nowadays. It's literally Piva foam, carbon plate, like cool colorway or whatever. That's what kind of diversifies it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And there's like different upper materials, I guess, and you know, some shoes have a wider toe box and whatever, and that's another distinguishing feature. But in essence, it's literally Piva foam, carbon plate, and you got a racing shoe.
Yeah.
And they all charge like a lot of money for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. It's
Yeah.
like double the price of like
Yeah,
the
it's
nylon
mad.
plated.
Yeah.
And it falls down into like a lot of these runners that I tend to see walk through the doors, they experience a lot of like plantar fasciitis, or they lose the ability to extend or bring that big toe up because, like you said, there is no flexibility or very minimal of it.
Yeah.
And
So you're not really working that joint as much, I guess.
correct. Yeah. And foot intrinsics is huge as well. For me, I take your ability to control your toes, similar to having your fingers work. They are able to absorb forces and then produce force quite well. But if you're always running in, say, carbon plated shoes, you tend to lose the ability to function those toe muscles. So like what Sota said, having a varied amount of shoes in rotation is a better choice rather than sticking to the same shoe all the time.
Yeah, and it's not even just the toes, because in the foot there's muscles called tarsal bones, and they tend to become like rigid and, you know, not flexible, and then they also become flexible at times depending on whether you're kind of pronating or supinating or like different foot positions. And the ability to switch from like rigid tarsal bones to flexible tarsal bones, that's what gives you the propulsion and also the shock absorption. So it's actually important for your foot to be able to kind of switch shapes as well. And having like a really rigid structure doesn't allow you to do that as much. So pronation, we're finally starting to understand, a lot more people are starting to understand that it is important to an extent because it is absorbing the shock. So we want to work those muscles that help out with that. Yeah.
That's correct, And it comes down to, do you have the strength or the capacity to deal with the excess pronation? Because naturally, you can have natural flat foot, but if you have the strength to control the pronation, supination, on my perspective, there isn't any issues in that.
Yeah. There's not even an actual like threshold between overpronation and underpronation. It's literally just, I would say it's to do with, are you getting pain from the excess pronation, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And that probably means that you can't handle the movement too much. So there's other ways to fix it as well. But yeah, you don't always need to like get a specific shoe to fix that. You can work on foot intrinsics a little bit and foot control. But that's what you should see like a podiatrist or a physio for. But yeah, I think the main thing is just don't think of it as a band-aid issue. Try and like work out what the cause is for foot pain or whatever it is, and reverse engineer it kind of thing.
Like build the strength. See what's causing the pain or the catalyst of the pain. The shoe is one piece of the puzzle. Yeah.
I think it's the same with running form as well, which is interesting because some people have a narrow footstep, right? And they kind of land here and then here right in front. And there's not much width between the 2 feet. A lot of physios say that strains the IT band quite a lot. But if you do the strength exercises to handle that extra strain,
that's correct,
then you kind of don't have to fix that running form, you know? So there's a lot of ways to look at it, I guess. Some people are like, let's try and fix that gait or running form. But other physios might be, let's try and make sure you're strong enough so you can handle that.
That's
or
correct.
even a combination of both.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like one of the videos
Yeah.
that you had explaining the asymmetry between your left
Yeah,
leg and right
exactly.
leg,
Yeah.
where one's more turned out
Yeah.
because of tibial rotation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess what you tend to see on social media is that there is a perfect form or a perfect way to run. But again, it comes down to the individual, you yourself. That could be the way that you were born, flat foot, or you're anteriorly tilted in the pelvis, and that's just who you are. But it's just building that strength around that to be able to tolerate that threshold when you run.
Definitely. So would you say the key point for today is shoes aren't really the be-all end-all, but the main thing is like rotate shoes, and also be open-minded that if you have an issue, it might not always be just the shoe, but it can be as well. It's always like a contributing factor of many
Correct.
different things. So
Yeah.
even though we've been very vague in this video, the main thing is to look a bit more holistically.
Yeah.
Everyone should be treated individually, which
Yeah.
is why we can't give like really specific advice. So,
Yeah, and that's when, like, say the questions come out to either like your physio, your podiatrist, your like shoe running gurus who have their inputs and the opinions, but at the end of the day, it is very individualized. What is the catalyst causing your injury? Not just the specific shoe on its own, but it could be like your training load, your volume, your intensity, biomechanics, nutrition, your sleep, all that type of stuff. And yeah,
There's also the terrain that you're running on that can load up different parts, right? So
yeah,
that's another reason why it's not just a shoe. Like if you're running, downhill a bit more, you might be using your quads to eccentrically contract.
Yeah.
And like that might be the cause of the knee issue as well. So
Yeah.
again, that goes back to different factors contributing.
that's correct.
But I guess you can look at what might be the biggest contributing factor.
Yeah.
And that's when you can be like, if it's the shoe, then let's try and address that issue.
Yeah. Going on that point, I know we said we're finalizing, but it's similar like when I was prepping for my marathon about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The terrain I was running on was very sloped, and it was just always on my right leg that was sloping down. So
Yeah.
I'd always experienced tib post
Yeah.
tendinopathy because it kept getting that stretch. So yeah, the shoe that I had was perfect. It was a Nike Invincible 3,
Yeah.
great for the long run aspects for back then. And just unfortunately the terrain was one of the biggest factor to why I experienced that tendinopathy. It was just that I couldn't tolerate that excessive pronation.
I feel like we can talk about this for such a long time. We could probably do a podcast about this one
Oh,
day.
we could, yeah.
So we will do that one day. So check out Wave Running Podcast. That's my podcast.
Boom.
I haven't done it in a while, but maybe I'll do that pretty soon.
Yes, when you go back to Perth, I reckon. You got plenty of time to do it.
Yeah, and also subscribe to both of our channels. Yeah, we both make videos frequently. Kevin's getting into YouTube a bit more now, so really excited to see what other content he produces.
Boom, boom.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
We always got to say that at the end.
Yes, true.